Popping Collars Podcast presents T-Shirts and You, Partners in Freedom.
Hi, I'm Ricardo Avila. You may remember me from such podcasts as Popping Collars and Popping Collars.
Hi, Ricardo.
Oh, hi, Liz.
It's Betsy. I want to show everyone how much I love Popping Collars by wearing your logo on a personal item of clothing. I'm curious, how do Popping Collars t-shirts get from your website to my door?
Whoa. Slow down, Betsy. You've just asked a mouthful. Well, it all starts here at poppingcollarspodcast.com. We let the folks at Redbubble cook up some amazing concoctions with our podcast logo, including stickers, hats, coffee mugs, and yes, even t-shirts. And when the teas are just right, they get spit out from the internet into the real world.
Ricardo, I have a friend who says there are no more t-shirts. Is he right?
No, Betsy. Your incredibly wrong friend is just ignorant and has never heard of new merchandise. We have t-shirts perpetually being made in multiple colors and multiple styles or multiple fashion tastes.
Shouldn't I just buy a book instead?
Don't kid yourself, Betsy. If books ever got the chance, they'd take money off you and everyone you care about, and you would never get a t-shirt.
Wow, thanks, Ricardo. I'll definitely get a t-shirt instead.
Good choice, Betsy. Good choice.
Get your t-shirt at poppingcollarspodcast.com. Just click the link at the top of the page that says Popping Collars merch and more and follow the prompts. You'll soon be the envy of all your friends. Pop, pop.
The preceding ad is a work of fiction directly stolen from the television show The Simpsons. Popping Collars t-shirts will not make you the envy of all your friends. Books are not out to get you or your family. Greg adds these things because he thinks it's funny and doesn't consider the impact these statements have on people's livelihoods. Popping Collars is a silly little podcast that you should not take seriously, except when you should. Hi, I'm Greg.
And I'm Betsy.
And hold on a second. Back for
record
more.
Scratch.
She's not just into dinosaurs. It turns out she's into 90s melodrama movies as well. It's Liz Easton is back with us, everybody.
Hey!
Yay!
I asked you when you guys went into this season, I was like, I have a few requests. And one was Jurassic Park, as you know. And was there another one?
These were the two no-brainers.
Yeah, for sure, this one. And then I may have asked about the piano because when I was in college, I wrote a major term paper on the piano. So I've seen that movie like 100 times.
Wow.
Okay, so how old were you again, Liz, when these movies came out?
Well,
in the actual theater.
I was born in 1983. So I didn't see any of these movies in the
None
theater.
of them. You were 10 years old.
10 years old.
10.
Yeah.
10 years
Yeah.
old.
Wow.
Okay.
We'll get into it.
Love that. I love that journey. I love this journey. Okay, let's go.
All right.
I mean, the
here we go.
dinosaurs, I can do the leap, but okay, I'm into it.
And this is going on 30, a Popping Collars side project where we're on the streets of Philadelphia.
Oh, I mean,
Na, na,
so
na,
obvious.
na, na.
That was a great Springsteen song.
Look at
I think
that.
it holds up. I love
That's
that
a
song.
whole song. They play
Yeah.
that whole
It's a whole
song
jam.
over the opening credits.
I love that song. And City of Brotherly Love by Neil Young is another
Yes,
great song.
also
to come
really
out of
good.
this. Yeah.
So much Strategy by Jonathan Demme. I know we're going to get into it. I'm very
We will.
excited.
With movies that were nominated or should have been nominated for Best Picture 30 years ago, this month we're looking at Philadelphia.
Highline Incorporated is now represented by Wyant, Wheeler, Hellerman, Tetlow, and Brown, and more specifically, Andrew Beckett.
I sincerely appreciate your faith in my abilities.
Mr. Beckett! How are you? What happened to your face?
I have AIDS.
Oh,
I'm seeking representation.
you want to sue Wyant, Wheeler, Hellerman, Tetlow, and Brown?
I was diagnosed with AIDS 8 months ago during a bout with pneumonia.
What's that on your forehead, pal? Andy, everyone in this room is your friend.
I misplaced an important complaint. That's their story.
We've been talking it over, your future, that is, and we feel that because we respect you so much, we must be honest with you.
Excuse me. Am I being fired?
Would you accept a client if you were constantly thinking, I don't want this person to touch me,
I have a case.
I don't want them to even breathe on me?
You don't want it for personal reasons.
Thank you, that's correct, I don't.
That's very disappointing.
Sir, wouldn't you be more comfortable in a research room?
No. Would it make you more comfortable?
Beckett, how you doing?
Counselor.
Did you find a lawyer?
There's going to be things said at the trial that are going to be hard for you to hear.
I want to know everything about his personal life. What deviant groups did he secretly belong to?
I didn't raise my kids to sit in the back of the bus.
Is Andrew Beckett the kind of lawyer who misplaces crucial documents?
An excellent lawyer.
Andrew Beckett is dying.
You were impressed with Andrew Beckett's work.
Andrew Beckett is angry.
What powerful force has caused him to change his mind?
And he wants someone to pay.
TriStar Pictures presents
The law's been broken.
I just want what is fair, what is right.
You remember the law, don't you?
a Jonathan Demme picture.
So let's talk about what this case is really all about.
Did you fire Andrew Beckett because he had AIDS?
The general public's hatred, our loathing, our fear.
In this courtroom, Mr. Miller, justice is blind to matters of sexual orientation.
We don't live in this courtroom, no, do we?
Tom Hanks.
I love the law.
Denzel Washington.
Are you gay?
Objection!
In a story about our lives,
Oh, Mom, today's a good day.
our fears,
Andy brought AIDS into our offices.
and our humanity.
I hate this case.
Philadelphia.
How many lawyers you go to before you call me?
9.
Betsy and Liz, I have a brief description of this movie. Would you like to hear
Yes. Please.
it? Okay, here we go. Two competing lawyers join forces to sue a prestigious law firm for AIDS discrimination. As their unlikely friendship develops, their courage overcomes the prejudice and corruption of their powerful adversaries. Good effort on the description.
Good try to bring it into a sentence. I mean, that's tough. Some of these are terrible. That one's not bad.
It is. Betsy, what is your history with Philadelphia?
So I do believe, even though when initially I was describing this movie to my daughter, I kept calling it Philadelphia Story, which is indeed another movie.
No.
Different movie.
Yeah, different movie.
Very different movie. Also a good movie, but very much a kind of Philadelphia mainline kind of romantic comedy situation. I think I believe I watched this in the theater, as we'll talk about. You know, Jonathan Demme did everything to pull your butt into the theater to come watch this movie, right? Like the number of people considered for the Tom Hanks role, and then you're still ending up with Tom Hanks, right? You know, the Denzel Washington role is originally an Italian white guy, but then it becomes Denzel Washington, right? So all of this, you know, the soundtrack, the this, the that. So there was a lot, the acting is stellar. So there was a lot to kind of pull you into watching this. So I believe I saw this in the theater. And if not, then I definitely saw it on TV.
Yeah, this was a miss for me. I totally missed it. And I got to say, even when I came to it late, like when it was a VHS rental or whatever at the video store, I don't know. I thought it was nice. Couldn't really, you know, it sort of felt like a nondescript movie to me. It's really when you think about this as the follow-up to Silence of the Lambs that you're kind of like,
yes.
Well, that's kind of the mind-blowing thing, because it's like Jonathan Demme could do whatever project he wanted to, and this was the project that he wanted to do. But I'm curious, like Liz, why are you so passionate about this movie? What does this movie unlock for you?
I have a very specific history with this movie. So I was 10 years old when it came out. Obviously, I didn't see it then. But my freshman year in high school, I went to a Jesuit high school in Seattle. In my freshman year biology class, we watched this movie in class one day. And it had to have been the whole class. Like it had to have occupied the entire class. And we had this teacher, Mr. Meza, who had just graduated from college. So he was like 22. All the girls had a crush on him. He was like a preppy guy. And what I remember was watching the whole movie. I think it was certainly not the first time I had learned about HIV and AIDS, which is another interesting thing I'll come back to. But it may have been the first time that I had been exposed to like an adult movie that featured adult gay men. Anyway, we obviously watched it for the public health education impact of this movie, which I think is significant. When I rewatched it today, I was like, wow, that was pretty genius, some of the choices that they made. But anyway, what I remember was the lights turned out, watching this movie in high school in the late 90s. And at the end of the movie, the class was also over and Mr. Meza did not turn back on the lights. And then we realized that he was crying in the back of the room. And he'd kind of dismissed us from the rooms kind of through his tears. And that always had a big impact on me. Like the movie was impactful anyway. It was maybe a little mature, maybe for where I was at that time in my life, but watching an adult that I respected and thought was really cool be so moved by it just had a big impact.
And I think too, thinking about a ninth grade audience who, I mean, we still deal with high schoolers using gay slurs and, just, that kind of like, as you're trying to define your maleness, right? You kind of that the whole thing comes into the picture. And so I am this, but I'm not this. And so then I call that out in a way, like all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that being even more so in the 1990s. That's a bold choice.
Yeah, it was a great choice. And one of the things I thought about as I was thinking about this movie was like, I grew up in the era of HIV and AIDS. Like I did not have any awareness of sex outside of the awareness of AIDS. Like education happened at the same time. And a lot of what I learned as a kid was about people who got HIV, quote, from no fault of their own. That, you would hear the story of the kid with the transfusion or
Ryan White,
exactly. And there was not a lot of an exploration of what that disease really meant to the gay community. And this movie dealt with that and even dealt with that tension with the idea of the innocent person with AIDS versus the quote risky person with AIDS. And for all of that to be sort of offered to us at that age, if it did feel timely because so much of our education up to that point was not doing that.
Yeah. And from a pop culture standpoint, there were like, this was actually in line with a few big pieces that were just kind of like around this. So for instance, Magic Johnson's announcement was 91. So that would have been 2 years before this movie. But what I really think about when I think about the early 90s AIDS education through popular culture is the Real World that was in San Francisco with Pedro. Yeah. Which was, I think, around this time. That would have been like 93, 94 was the San Francisco season. Yeah. So so there was a lot of sort of education happening in popular culture, I think.
Yeah, it made me think about, I just listened to Two Guys, Five Rings, which is Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers' Olympics podcast, which is, not so much about your daily ingestion of what's happening at the Olympics and more about the culture happening around it. But they interviewed Greg Louganis. And they both talked about like Greg Louganis and like their age, like Apollo Anton Ono, like these like hot, athletes who are kind of a part of their kind of figuring out, am I gay? Like what's going on? But Louganis and the hit on the board and like all of that sort of stuff. And like when, right. And like, now I can't remember when we knew that Louganis was HIV positive, when that actually became public, but he talked about being at the Olympics and that he had been dealing with Anthony Fauci and had started to take AZT, like early forms of AZT, and how that just messed with your system. Like when Andy's like almost not making it to the bathroom and almost not, all of these things, and how much it's just wrecking your body and robbing it of testosterone, which is what you need to compete in the Olympics. Right. And like looking at Greg's performance and be like, oh my Lord, like the ability to dive and to do what you were doing. and be battling this disease, right? And then to also be watching the Olympics and suddenly have all these commercials, how to not that are anti, that are working against HIV,
like PrEP,
right? So to be undetectable, right? Like, and so I've just watched Philadelphia, listen to this podcast, and I'm watching a lot of Olympics coverage, dear listeners. That's kind of where we are. I'll let you in on our time machine, but it's then where we are medically now. And so it was just kind of, I was having a very interesting moments in my head putting all of that together.
Yeah, I can't remember what your format is for this podcast, but can I just keep talking?
Yeah, we're in initial takes right now.
Oh, okay.
So your takes.
Okay, here we go. Hot takes. Yeah, Liz, you go first. You go first, Liz. What's your hot takes on this film?
It's not so much a hot take, but one of the things I realized as I watched this, which I wouldn't have known the first time I watched it, or even just watching it for entertainment instead of trying to think critically, was just what a great vehicle it was for public health education. From like a storytelling perspective, from when first, in a huge part, it's the story of Denzel Washington's transformation as a person, like as a human being, but also as a person who's educated to live in the world in community with people who have AIDS. So from the point where like the director did this great thing of having the actors often talk directly into the screen. So like you had eye contact. The way that
which is very Jonathan Demme. Totally. He does that a lot.
Yeah, right. That. Silence of the Lambs was very much like that. When Denzel Washington goes to see his like family doctor, and the doctor just reads off how you get HIV, like that was public education, and it was effective. And then learning about stigma and learning about social death. And learning about AZT and different treatments, learning that your sexual partner for many years might not necessarily contract HIV from you. There's just so much education happening in this movie that felt really, it was obviously intentional. It's clear that they worked with lots of organizations. It's clear that, I mean, from everything, from the extras to everything. It's clear that they had that perspective, but I think it was really, really effective. Yes. The casting was terrific.
I agree.
And would not be done today. You would not cast straight actors, straight like major actors in these gay roles, but they needed to at that time.
And one of the four like big attorneys at Wheeler is an actor who is HIV positive.
Oh, I didn't know
the one who knew.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me
get his name because I want to say his name because you were like, I'm like, see, is his character supposed to be gay? So Ron Vaughter is HIV positive and an actor, and Demme fought to have him be in this role when TriStar was like, I don't know whether we can insure him to be in the film, and he was like, you know what the subject matter of this film is? Like, that is not great.
Wow.
Like he needs to be on the film. And so like really fought for him. And there are some stats that talk about that like more than half of the people in this film who were extras were dead within a year of the release of this film.
Yeah. And Tom Hanks mentioned that in his acceptance speech.
Yeah. That sort of really embeddedness in community that needed to happen for this to feel like it was going to be authentic. Now, there were critics from, the gay community who said it didn't go far enough. It didn't really accurately portray, what living with AIDS is like and da-da-da. There was Larry Kramer and others, all came forward and said these things. So it's trying to live in a space and, and of course, Hollywood, it took you a decade to show up, thank goodness you're here, all that sort of stuff too. But what I thought was so powerful are those moments when Denzel, is trying to draw out the language and the terribly offensive language that we use and the stigma of being gay. And he says it all and spews it all. And they don't make his transformation easy. They don't make it quick.
No.
And I also can't imagine him being white. I cannot.
Isn't that interesting that they almost cast a bunch of white men in that role?
Yes.
The racial aspect of homophobia felt really
so important.
Yeah.
But I think it's also so important, like that moment when he's trying to kind of eat the sandwich in the law library at Penn, and the guy comes by with his little librarian face, and he's looking at him, and you feel a racial undertone. in looking at this black man, this law library, and that idea of the discrimination that Denzel is aware of as a black man in Philadelphia.
And that's how he makes his first sort of like connection there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I can help with this.
Yes.
Sir? This is the supplement. You're right. There is a section on HIV-related discrimination.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We do have a private research room available.
I'm fine right here, thank you. Excuse me, do you know where I can find the State versus Murdoch case?
Just a moment, I'll be right with you.
Thanks.
Wouldn't you be more comfortable in a research room?
No. Would it make you more comfortable?
Oh, Beckett, how you doing?
Counselor. Huh.
Right.
So I think my biggest take is that coming to this film, 30 years later, as a more full-fledged adult, because I started my sex ed probably a little bit before you all, but then it was very much in an AIDS atmosphere going forward, HIV atmosphere going forward. That I think really seeing the work that the creators were doing to have this message be spread as far and as wide as they could. And if it's taken this long and the movie almost dies when Orion folds, like this whole stuff, right? If it's going to get to the screen, we want to have as many people as possible see it.
The only scorching hot take that I would have along these lines, just having the Denzel Washington conversation. Has to just be that the Academy just doesn't like Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
Right? Or at least the Academy at this time. Because you have Malcolm X and this back to back and nothing, like crickets from the Academy, right? And it's like, okay, well, they just don't like Denzel Washington is what's going on there. You're totally right, though, about the legal thriller aspect, because the other thing that we're leaving out of the early 90s conversation is the fact that John Grisham's novels are like flinging themselves off the shelves. The Firm and Time to Kill and The Client and all that stuff.
Pelican Brief, like all of that.
Like right around this time. So,
yeah.
I have a couple of not so hot takes. One is just shame on Dr. J for hanging out with Jason Robards in the...
For shame, Dr. J.
Come on, Dr. J. Pick your friends better. Come on. And then the other one is, holy cow, young Ann Dowd. Unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable. I saw her in the credits and had to go back. She's the sister with the red hair who keeps having the
pregnant sister. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm Googling.
And can we say film debut of another great black actress?
Anna Deavere Smith?
No.
Oh, no, the young...
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, yes.
Chandra Wilson as the woman who can't do makeup.
Oh.
The friend. And she plays, her character's name is her name. She is Chandra.
Okay, I totally missed her. But
great.
Ann Dowd I saw, and I was like,
oh my god.
Did not recognize Ann Dowd at all.
I'm looking her up right now.
Which brings me, Betsy Liz.
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, I've got top 5. I've got the top 5 actors that I can't believe they're in this movie. They look so different.
So Greg, what again was your? I'm sorry,
top 5 actors.
Top 5.
Top 5 actors. I can't believe they're in this movie. They're so young and look so different.
Okay, honorable mention.
Honorable mention, young Zach Galifianakis shows up in 5 episodes of Boston Common. Boston Common.
And that's different than Boston Legal?
Boston Common became Boston Legal. I think it started as Boston Common.
Shut up. Really?
And then became Boston Legal.
That doesn't sound right to me.
And it had either Dermot Mulroney or Mulroney, the other guy. So whatever that one is, had one of those guys in it.
Okay.
So young Zach Galifianakis, you won't recognize him if you look that up.
Okay, I won't even know who he is.
That's right. All right, number 5, young Michael Shannon from Groundhog Day, a movie that we saw earlier this year.
What was he?
He was the young couple that goes to the gets the wrestling tickets. He was the
Oh yeah, WrestleMania.
WrestleMania. Number 4, there's a young Nick Cage in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I think
Like in one of the classrooms.
Hang on, I'm taking
Like a
off my
stoner
shirt.
guy.
I think he's just like a working at a fast food joint or something. He's
Okay.
unrecognizable. Number 3.
All right. Number 3.
This one will trip your trigger. There's a young Nick Offerman in Sin City.
Really?
Sin City.
I'm Googling this one.
Sort of like violent comic noir movie from the 2000s.
Oh,
Yeah, it was like one of those kind of comic. Oh,
No. This is the one
Yeah,
that was
look at
like,
that.
what was it, Zach?
not Spin City, Liz.
No,
Spin
not
City,
Spin
that's what
City.
I was thinking of.
Yes,
Not
this is
Sin
very
City.
different.
Sin
No.
City. Sin City.
Sin City.
Yeah. Number 2, there's a young Melissa McCarthy in one of our beloved movies, Betsy. She's in Go from
What?
1999.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Unrecognizable. You wouldn't recognize her. Young Melissa McCarthy. You're looking her up right now.
I am looking up a still from the movie, and I can't even remember when this is. All right, I'm gonna have to watch a clip. Okay, yeah.
And then finally,
Okay, number 1.
There's a young Christian Bale in Empire of the Sun, mid 80s, Steven Spielberg. He's a little kid who gets stuck in a concentration camp or something.
Hold on. We all know that's Christian Bale.
What? Unrecognizable. Little Christian Bale.
I was going to say Melissa McCarthy is entirely recognizable in Go.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Christian Bale was a child actor. He was on like Newsies and stuff. Like, what are you even talking about?
Unrecognizable. Unrecognizable.
Greg, I loved Empire of the Sun. Loved it.
Never seen
Empire of
it.
the Sun's great.
Bale.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to call this a top of the list fail. That's what I'm going to say. You better redeem yourself on the next episode.
Okay.
Be
what's
better,
your best,
Greg.
Liz, what's your best scene from this movie?
I think it was the law library scene from start to finish. Everything from the sort of the beginning of this transformation that you could see in Denzel Washington's life, which really reminded me of like Christian, like metanoia. Like you could see this thing coming together, to watching Andy hold firm and be strong in the face of adversity, and then also be willing to forgive and begin this journey of relationship with this other person. It was a long scene, but I think from start to finish, it was really beautiful. And my runner up is a very short scene. It's the home video, not of him as a child at the end, but the black and white home video when he's visiting his parents for their anniversary. This kind of manic, like good day that sick people sometimes have, and seeing the family come together. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
Well, and when he uncovers the thing at the bottom of the bird bath.
And did you think?
Yes. So the way his name is written there, Andy.
It looks like Andy on the.
They mimicked
Toy Story.
it in Toy Story. They mimicked it in Toy Story.
On purpose?
The same on purpose. The same handwriting.
That makes sense because I thought of that as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, they pulled it. Yeah, which I was like, that's. I mean, the intentionality of Pixar. Am I surprised? No, absolutely not. But like, I had not made that connection until I was, digging and sifting and researching, and I was like, oh wow. I love that library scene too, because I do feel like the element that I think drew Denzel over there was wanting to show somebody up, I feel like it was less about Andy in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and it was somebody who was being an asshole and protecting. So he was like, I'm going to stick up for somebody.
It was justice. Yes. Yeah.
It was justice, right? I feel like it was because they did such a slow play on the transformation, because it would have been too easy for him to kind of get to a different place too early, right?
Yeah.
And that idea of then he's seeing this person who's obviously committed to this case, and maybe there is something here, and he knows he's a good attorney. So like, what are you looking at? What is going on? Because Denzel likes to win. His character is the TV guy who likes to win and loves the case and all that. And so I went with the scene that probably really confused me the first time I watched this movie, but the surrealist after the Halloween party.
Yeah.
And,
opera.
they're supposed to be prepping and the opera's happening.
Congratulations, counselor.
Congratulations.
You survived what I assume to be your first gay party intact.
Let me tell you something, Andrew. When you're brought up the way I am, the way most people are in this country, there's not a whole lot of discussion about homosexuality or, what do you call it, alternate lifestyles. As a kid, you're taught that queers are funny, queers are weird, queers dress up like their mother, that they're afraid to fight, that they're a danger to little kids, and that all they want to do is to get into your pants. And that pretty much sums up the general thinking out there if you want to know the truth about it.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Very welcome. All right, let's go over this testimony. We got a big day on Monday. Okay. First, I'll ask you, can you describe the circumstances in which you joined the firm Wyatt, Wheeler, Hellerman, Tetlow, and Brown?
Miller, do you ever pray?
Andrew, that is not the answer to the question. But yes, I pray.
What do you pray for?
What do you mean? I pray. I pray that, I don't know. I pray that my baby is healthy. I pray that my wife made it through the delivery. I pray that the Phillies win the pennant. Now, can we go through these questions? Number one, can you describe the circumstances in which you joined the firm Wyatt, Wheeler, Hellerman, Tetlow, and Brown? Can you do that for me?
Do you mind this music? Do you like opera?
I am not that familiar with opera, Andrew.
Oh, this is my favorite aria. It's Maria Callas. It's Andrea Chenier. Umberto Giordano. This is Maddalena.
And it was a tough scene to film because Demi wanted the vocal to not be fed in later. He wanted it to be live in the room. And then the way the lighting changes and you're watching Andy experience this, and then you're watching Denzel's character, and you're seeing his arc over the whole evening.
Mm-hmm.
I turned to Ruby and we were watching the film together, and she'd never seen it. And I said, what? And he gets home to his house and he picks up the baby and puts the baby back down, and he gets in bed with his wife. He's still like in his clothes, right? And hugs her. And I said, what is the emotion that you think he is experiencing? She said, he is realizing that the love that he has in his life is the same love that Andy and gay people and people with AIDS have in their life. It's the same human experience. And that it becomes the commonality because he's connecting with Maria Callas's character and the loss in the opera, and and it's this connection, all these links that I think I was kind of like, what the hell is happening in the middle of this movie? Right? Like, man, this fireplace seems really purposely placed in this apartment.
Yeah,
it's a long scene.
And I hate opera music, so I found it very grating. Like, I really had to separate myself from the music that I was hearing, which I hated very much, to whatever the dynamic was.
Yeah.
And I thought, I love Ruby's take. And I think she is right.
I think she's right.
I thought of it as grief, as like he was encountering this awareness of loss and love, and he saw the inevitable end of this.
And she was connecting it to the dance. And him and Denzel dancing with his wife, and Antonio Banderas and Andy dancing together, and I mean this was really Banderas's first big American movie. The fact that I read that John Leguizamo considered this role but turned it down for Super Mario Brothers, I was like, what?
Can you imagine?
I could not see that. I could not see that at all. That would not have been a good fit for me.
Leguizamo.
Because I like, the way he gets heated in the ER, the way, it's just, he's the perfect kind of person in this role.
That was great casting. Great.
You guys are all over the scenes that I would pick.
What's yours? What are you doing?
Stuff. I would say, that first meeting, which is actually kind of the second meeting in the, but when Andy goes to Joe's office and that whole sort of like initial thing of like shaking hands and then like, oh, wait.
Wiping his hand off.
Yeah, exactly. Like Denzel he's just so good about like, just playing the ignorance of that moment, and he doesn't really want this case because he doesn't think he's going to win, just like you said, Betsy, but also like it's just not a world that he wants to engage in, and just the but he's a good guy, so and just the way that the tension plays out in that scene is fascinating.
We touched on this a little bit, the power of what Denzel does here as the everyman. Especially in terms of discrimination and kind of bigoted thought, right? And for my summer reading for school, we had a couple of books to choose from, and I chose Monica Guzman's I Never Thought of It That Way: How to Have Fearlessly Curious Conversations in Dangerously Divided Times. And she talks about her own family, who her parents are first generation Americans, naturalized here, and have took their citizenship, and her and her brother, and but they are very conservative and she is not, and they're actually from the Seattle area, and all this kind of stuff, and how she has conversations across those divides. And I think about that kitchen scene with Denzel and his wife, and kind of she's very clearly in a world where she has many more gay contact and friends and family members, Aunt Hoozadoo, and that we can still love people who have different experiences and different opinions than we do, and try to, if that's an element of loving them and having them be where they are and still loving them, or loving them and potentially transformation, who knows, right? But that can't be the goal. I think that was an interesting place in the pregame of the movie in the beginning, to really have this be a relationship where they had a difference of opinion. They didn't play it up as much, because I think that would have took us on another direction. But it took me to this book and listening to this book, and Monica and her trying to, work with her family and work with others who are in similar divides and that sort of thing.
Real quick, around the horn, Liz, best performance from the film.
I think it's Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
I think he was terrific. Obviously, Tom Hanks did a beautiful job, and he probably was the perfect person for that role at that time. But I think that Denzel Washington was amazing in this role. I also do want to shout out for, maybe you all know how to pronounce her middle name, Anna. Is it Devere Smith? God, I love everything she's in. I love everything she's in. She was the paralegal. I love everything that she's in. I thought she was great, especially when she was on the stand. She was wonderful.
Yeah.
But standout performance.
Earrings were too ethnic.
And
she has made, listener, if you have not delved into Anna Devere Smith, IMDb, the choices that she has made in terms of being an actor
in theater too.
Theater too. Oh,
yeah.
Just go there.
She was great. But Denzel Washington to me stand out.
Denzel for me too, probably. I'll take Antonio Banderas from this movie, though. I think
Yeah.
he's great for
was great.
for the limited amount of screen time that he has. I think he knocks it out of the park. What about you, Betsy?
I feel the same. I mean, this is the beginning of our Tom Hanks losing weight for roles journeys.
Yep.
Right? This is our first time.
We're switching from Costner to Hanks. We're about to get a lot of Hanks on our show.
This is true. And they told Denzel to gain weight. And so
you could tell.
He would eat chocolate bars in front of Tom Hanks on set. Because that's kind of where we were.
That's curious. I actually thought that Denzel looked like he had put on weight for this role. And I wondered if it was to contrast this idea of like robust healthiness. Because he did look like vital. Like you just wanted to grab him. Like
because I
really
do believe y'all can check birthdays. I do believe that Denzel is slightly older than Tom Hanks is. Like by 4 years, maybe. So when you have them, one of the best stills of this whole movie is the two of them sitting at the table, the angle Demi has on them, and Denzel's just done something. It was when he was trying to rile either Bradley Whitford's character or Jason Robards, and they're sitting pretty close to each other. And I think you want that comparison to be pretty stark, right, in terms of physicality. But the intellect is still there. And Hank says to, good job, counselor. Like that stuff. Like, I love the peer angle with the two of them that they were able to play together.
It's a work movie. I love it.
It's a workplace movie.
People doing their job.
I love it.
Well. Yeah, it always makes
I'm like, when they were trying to take Andy down, I'm like, did you not see him walk into the office and know everybody's name?
Yeah.
Everybody's coffee order. Everybody's like, whatever. I'm like, come on, right?
We're deviating from the script, but one of the powerful scenes that really moved me and was where I was really crying before this pod was basically the last night in the hospital with Andy. Yeah. And I don't know if you all have had this experience in your personal lives or in church, but I have found one of my huge deficits as a priest is saying goodbye when it's time to actually say goodbye, like when someone's dying.
Yeah.
And I've done everything from in my early priesthood saying stupid shit, like I'll see you in the morning. Like when I knew they were going to die tonight, like, hey, see you later, to really trying, but the resistance to saying goodbye, even when this is it, is so real. And I loved how they showed how every sibling and the parents, like everybody knew what was happening. And nobody could say it. One guy said, like, God bless you.
Yeah.
But everyone else said, I'll see you tomorrow, even his parents.
Other than the guy who couldn't say anything, he just cried.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I just wanted to pop in a recommendation. I have not seen this film yet, and I need to figure out how to stream and or buy, or I don't know. But there's a documentary that came out last year called A Still Small Voice that's about pastoral care in hospitals, and it follows a woman doing a pastoral care chaplaincy in New York at a hospital there. Her supervisor is an Episcopal priest who helps run the program. It's a little during COVID and beyond that, but just kind of trying to film, give dignity to kind of what a hospital chaplaincy looks like. And there's elements that are kind of alive in this. Even if you just watch the trailer of that movie, you're like,
yeah,
it's
good work.
Yeah.
Ugh. Okay, I got some stats about the movie.
Stats.
Philadelphia opened on December 22nd, 1993.
Merry Christmas.
They thought this was going to be an Oscar movie. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, I think so.
The fact that it wasn't nominated for an Oscar, I think, is shocking.
Shocking.
This day in 90210.
I forgot that you guys did this.
This isn't our first time since Shannon Doherty passed. Am I wrong with that?
I'm sure it is.
It is.
It is. Oh, guys.
We should say rest in peace to
Shannon.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been processing that loss.
Yeah.
Oh. Is this a Brenda-centric episode? Please
this is
say
not.
it is.
No, so we're not going to mention Brenda here. Yeah. So, we have arrived at season 4, episode 14, called Windstruck. That's the name of the episode. The description, it's all systems go. That's a really disgusting way to, when I finish this sentence. It's all systems go for David and Donna, who plan a romantic night. Who plan a romantic night to celebrate their 2-year anniversary. I don't think this is when they have sex.
No, they don't have sex
later
until
on.
the college years.
Well, this is the college years. We've made it. We've made it to the
Seasons.
first year of college.
We're in college because I'm in college. So
Yeah.
I'm your barometer for where
I don't think they have sex.
They're
until
freshmen in
later.
college, but I don't think they have
No.
sex for their
Way
2
later.
No,
They have sex
because I'm
way
sure
later.
this doesn't. I'm sure there's a failure to launch in some way of these.
Something
best
like
laid
that.
plans.
Something like that. Meanwhile, on campus, Steve is disowned by Keg House. Steve, get it
The
together.
fact that it was Keg House.
Come on.
I mean, it was just the best
I love
fake
that
fraternity name. Kappa Epsilon Gamma. Like it was just the best.
Steve. Work on your
Good job, Aaron
priorities.
spelling. Good job, Aaron spelling.
Okay,
sorry.
Philadelphia
Yes,
had
back.
a domestic gross of $77 million, making it the number 13 grossing movie of 1993.
Absolutely. And not nominated for
And not
an
nominated.
Oscar.
Yeah, we should keep saying that every time.
They keep
it
all
is-
the stuff. Anyway.
It is the number 1,120th
Okay.
top grossing movie of all time. Betsy, you're going to have to pull up your IMDb on this one.
I got it. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
It comes between Night School, which is a comedy.
Is that with
featuring-
Mark Harmon?
No, it's a comedy featuring
Oh.
Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish.
Oh,
Night
okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Okay.
And another, I'm assuming, comedy called Parental Guidance, starring Billy Crystal and Bette Midler.
That's a great team.
So you get Night
Hold
School,
on.
Philadelphia, and Parental Guidance to Flirt, Marry, Kill. Liz?
Parental Guidance also stars Marissa Tomei,
Oh,
Tom Everett Scott, who is also linked to Tom Hanks a lot because he was in that little like Beatlesy kind of movie.
Oh, that thing you
Whoa.
do.
that he was in, right?
uh-huh.
So this parental guidance thing is Artie and Diane Decker agreed to look after their 3 grandchildren when their Type A helicopter parents go out of town for work. Problems arrive when the kids' 21st century behavior collides with their
Kill.
grandparents'
Kill.
Oh,
old school methods.
wow.
Kill.
A movie that you're intrigued by, maybe you'll watch
Mhm.
one time, that's your flirt. A movie that you'll watch over and over again, that's your
Yeah.
marry. And a movie that you could care less if you ever
Well, I
watch.
want to kill that one. It sounded terrible. I'll marry Philadelphia, which means
Agreed.
I'll flirt with Night School.
Okay.
I will. I mean, I'm all for a transformative journey for Kevin Hart. I very much have also been enjoying his After Hours Olympics show with Keenan Thompson,
Very
which
good.
is very funny on the Peacock. I just want to recommend. But a group of high school dropouts is forced to attend night school in hopes that they pass their GED exam to finish high school. That sounds fun.
Sounds great. Love it.
Love it. All right. We're 3 for 3. I'm the same way. Flirt, Night
Yes.
School, marry, Philadelphia, kill. Parental.
Yay!
Sorry, Billy Crystal. Sorry, Bette Midler.
I love you both.
Betsy pointed this out before, but Philadelphia has an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a low score,
Yeah,
but
that's a low score.
a lot of the negative reviews are from queer critics
Yeah.
who
Yeah, fair.
critiqued this movie. Yeah, just being
Mhm.
problematic in some places.
Mhm.
Roger Ebert, though, Betsy, what do you think?
He loved, come on, Raj. I want him to love it, Greg. You better love it.
Philadelphia breaks no new dramatic ground. And yet, Philadelphia is quite a good film on its own terms. 3.5 out of 4 stars.
That sounds like a backdoor compliment if I've ever heard one. Okay.
I disagree.
Thanks, Raj. Janet Maslin says Philadelphia mostly succeeds in being forceful, impassioned, and moving, sometimes even rising to the full range of emotion that its subject warrants. But too often, even at its most assertive, it works in safely predictable ways. 3 out of 5 stars.
So I will. Here's another thing that I have to think about for all of us as well. Watching this movie at whatever age we first watched it, we didn't necessarily know what was assumed at the time. We were all pretty young whenever we first engaged with this movie.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I think that for us, it becomes more impactful
Mm-hmm.
based on subject matter and
Mm-hmm.
our age, I guess is more the Venn diagram I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a much more complicated telling of this story that I think we would have now. Like I'm thinking of the TV series It's a Sin that was on, I think, HBO or something like that, about like the AIDS crisis told by, told over sort of the course of this series. And it's amazing, right? But it's like, that's not the kind of more complicated conversation we were having back when Philadelphia was coming, right?
This was trying, or less complicated. It was trying to bring this conversation into the mainstream.
Yeah.
In a way that was limited. Like there were limitations to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Including
And I
like they cut scenes of more physical intimacy between Andy and his partner, like them laying in bed together and stuff. They just thought, we can't do that. Which nowadays it seems weird that you never really saw. Did they even kiss? I'm sure they did.
I don't think
but
so.
not
They just-
passionately.
Yeah.
No, because I think now of all of the information that I have on the other side of the first watching of this film, and I didn't know about ACT UP. I didn't know about all of these things and what was going on. You think about a movie like Pose, and I didn't know about or a series like Pose. Didn't know about kind of that journey in the queer community and the communities of color, and even like Greg and I doing our CPE, our hospital rotation at San Francisco General Hospital, and seeing the terminal, not terminal, what do you call it, the ward or whatever, where AIDS patients were for years, regularly, when the crisis and the pandemic, that epidemic was at its peak. And I just remember these portraits on the wall of like the gay men's chorus being there, this like kick line of dancers like going through the hospital ward. And I think we know so much more now about what was and wasn't talked about, what was and wasn't funded.
But art evolves, and I think this movie is a step in the evolution, right? So I think it's to be appreciated in that way. How did it do at the Oscars? It won 2 Oscars, which I'm sure you know.
Okay.
Let's see.
I know one.
Well, one
which
is a famous one. Yeah, it's Tom Hanks.
I know the other one.
What's the other one, Liz?
The other one is The Streets of Philadelphia for Bruce
That's
Springsteen.
right, best song. Bruce Springsteen.
Yep.
Ding, ding, ding.
I was bruised and battered, I couldn't tell what I felt. I was unrecognizable to myself. Saw my reflection in the window and didn't know my own face. Oh, brother, are you gonna leave me wasting away on the streets of Philadelphia?
What was it nominated for, Greg?
It was nominated for 3 other awards.
Screenplay.
Screenplay, yep. Best original screenplay.
Okay. Good.
Directing?
No, the other 2,
the directing was great.
The other 2 are not major awards.
It was like a sound award.
Makeup.
Yes, best makeup. Good job, Liz.
Yes, yes,
because of his
yes, the wigs
transformation.
and yes.
Awesome. And
it wasn't
then,
a sound. So what was it?
No, but it's you're not going to get it because it's a dupe of a previous thing that we talked about. Neil Young was also nominated.
Oh, yes,
Neil
he was.
Young.
And they both performed at that Academy Awards. You can find the clips on YouTube, which are not great. And I love that Bruce Springsteen song to this day. It's one of my favorites of his songs. And I think that Neil Young's song was better.
No, it's really simple. It's like minimalist.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
I mean, and I will admit that I am a sucker, like even like in this most recent series of The Bear, or whenever they do like kind of pans around a town. And in this one, they do Eddie Vedder's cover of Sooner or Later. And it's all restaurants all over Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're just in and out, and it's everybody doing their thing and in these restaurants. And like that whole opening of this movie.
It was one of my favorite parts of the movie was the opening montage. It was beautiful.
Just seeing the life of the city.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler, you are magnificent.
You are my hero. Andrew is right. You are the greatest. Are you gay?
Objection?
How dare you?
Witness will kindly answer.
No, I am not a homosexual.
Isn't it true that when you realized Andrew Beckett, your golden boy, your future senior partner, was gay and had AIDS, it drove a stake of fear right through your heterosexual heart? Remembering all the hugs and the handshakes, the intimate moments in the sauna, the friendly pats on the backside that you and Andrew exchanged, like guys exchange sometime, it made you say, my God, what does this say about me?
Objection, Your Honor.
The witness will please respond to the question.
Mr. Miller, you may tap dance around me all you wish with your innuendos and locker room fantasies, but the truth still remains that your client worked when he wanted to work, telling us what he thought we needed to know about who he really was. Andy insisted on bending the rules, and his work suffered tremendously in the long run as a result of that.
Will you explain this to me like I'm a 6-year-old, Mr. Wheeler, because I just don't get it. Who makes these rules that you're talking about, huh? You?
Read your Bible, Mr. Miller. Old and the New Testament. Pretty valuable rules in there.
So now is the time when we would usually talk about the lasting legacy of this movie. I think we've done a lot of that, but there is a religious aspect that I kind of want to have a brief conversation, I think, about, which is the idea of sin and physical wellness, which is something that this movie sort of takes on. You know, it's this idea of like, there's something morally wrong with Andy, and so spiritually he's been afflicted with this disease. That's sort of that's an idea that I think gets propagated more amongst sort of conservative Christian thought, but I think amongst a lot of Christian thought. I mean, it's something that kind of shows up in scripture. You know, it's this idea of who sinned, this man or his parents, this idea of like inherited disease based on like morality. I don't know, like what, how have you guys experienced that conversation in your ministries, this idea of like morality and wellness?
I think one of the things that I learned from the AIDS epidemic when I was in seminary, where like you guys, we were just surrounded with so much history and so much impact and so many people who were HIV positive or had AIDS, was this idea that a virus is morally neutral. And I feel like I really encountered that again in the COVID pandemic. And that was not conservatives, it was liberals. This idea of, well, what did they do? How did they fail in their
who burst their little bubble?
In their precautions,
who's seeing
where they go. Exactly. And to realize that like, oh no, we really cannot think of infectious disease that way. And I think for a lot of people who are chronically ill or disabled, where the disease is not infectious, it is part of that conversation too, that there's a lot of stigma because people think somehow you did this to yourself. Diabetes is a great example. Like it's not true. The great majority of people who have type 2 diabetes are not obese, like the great majority. And yet it's a disease that we tie to obesity. So I know someone recently who was diagnosed later in life as a type 1 diabetic, which is an autoimmune disease. And when they were telling people, they said, it's an autoimmune disease. I didn't do anything to get it. It's like, oh my God, you know, so we have a long way to go when it comes to disability, a good theology of disability, but also good ethics.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I step in it and touch it on the kind of everything happens for a reason stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when, you know, whether, you know, and we do it to soothe. And then when you start applying it to things like cancer and this, no, you're like, no, like, ooh, no, I don't really think that. Like, it starts to become challenging and maybe not exactly what we think. And so that ends up in my ministry where I kind of touch it more, when we're kind of talking about theodicy and how God is present in and around illness. I mean, I see no better example of the power of love and the divine, and then in the Beckett family, around Andy, around Miguel, around all of that, right? Their presence is God there. And that's easy to see. And to not then, I think, thinking about Andy as a young guy going to a porn theater and having a, random sexual encounter. And he'd, kind of heard of this, maybe it was called GRID, maybe it was called whatever it was, this cancer, but not necessarily figuring out how that actually connected to him.
Oh, well, not knowing.
Or whatever that was. Who would know? Right. I think we always think that that looking back, when we Monday morning quarterback these things, that somehow we can know. But when you're put on the stand and asked to talk about it, you don't know. And the fact that you could tell that he and Miguel had the conversation, they knew that had happened. They had probably talked about it a long time ago. There's so much human wisdom in how relationships are portrayed in this movie that I think it touches divine wisdom.
I think what you're saying is right, but it's about, like, in order to make a moral statement about a disease affecting a population because there's something sinful about who they are as people, what you have to start with is dehumanizing all of those people, right? And that's unfortunately the sin that I think religious institutions have lived in for a long time, is like dehumanizing people so that they can become hell worthy. It's like that's a horrible thing that we've done to society, I think.
Well, and I think too, in my ministry and in my life, what I see is this existential fear of death, which seeks blame for disease.
Yeah.
So whether it is heart disease or breast cancer, or, it's so natural that whenever somebody dies unexpectedly, the first question that people whisper is how did he die? Because you want to make sure I'm not going to die that way. I think that there's such a profound fear of death, which the church should be speaking to constantly, but we're not, that there ends up being a big, as you said, dehumanizing people to be like, I'm not like them.
Right.
And this isn't going to happen to me because I'm making different choices. When in reality, a virus is a living thing that has no morality at all.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what you said, Liz, and I totally agree with that. It is this idea of fear that sort of drives a lot of this, a lot of the sort of moral blaming of other people. I think it's really about fear of either people that you don't know or communities that you don't like, or, sort of all of that stuff. And it's this idea that I have to create a narrative to justify my fear. So if this person gets sick, well, then my narrative can be, well, it's obviously what they did that made them sick. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's, unfortunately, it just feels like that's like a vital religious argument.
And it's religious, and it's also, I think it is becoming a spirituality for the unreligious. Like, if you don't have a religious framework, you're able to fall into this thinking that health, you see this a lot among progressives and liberals and wealthy people, that health is a moral virtue.
Yeah.
The pursuit of health, which is something that is really largely accessible for rich people anyway, is seen as a moral virtue. And when someone is unhealthy, they're seen as somehow having morally failed. And if you pressed people on that, they wouldn't say it. They'd be like, of course not. But you hear that language all the time. What did they do? What did they not do? And in the body neutrality movement, there's this idea of just taking health out of the equation. First of all, any body can be healthy, but also health is not a thing that everybody needs to aspire to even. It's not a moral victory to have physical health. May I recommend a great book?
Yeah.
I don't know the author of it, but you can find it easily. It's a little book called My Body Is Not a Prayer Request. And it's a disabled person sort of unpacking the idea of disabled theology in a very readable way. It would be great for any book club at church, anything. It's really
I love
good.
that. Who is this movie for, Betsy?
Those with ears to hear, let them hear. I mean, I think Demi made it for people who needed to see the humanity in the story.
Yeah.
That if they hadn't lived it yet in a major city with a family member, a friend, a colleague, a coworker, something, this is for you and for young people like us.
Yeah, well,
That's right.
it's for a generation that needs to talk about this stuff and not hide it. Yeah. What about you, Liz? Who's this movie for?
Yeah, I think they cast a wide net by making it such a Grisham-esque legal thriller. But I would say for the purposes of this conversation, it's for 9th grade biology students.
Yeah.
There we go.
What's your rating for this movie out of 5, Liz?
5.
Wow. Amazing. How did
I'm giving it a 5, and it's above Nightmare for me.
Whoa. Okay, Philadelphia comes in on top of Betsy's list for 1993. Wow. I gave it a 4.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. What'd you say?
The opera scene's a little too long, but otherwise, good movie. No,
really, the opera lops off a whole point. All right, Greensboro.
No,
okay.
I really do. Like, every time I watch this movie, I'm sort of always surprised by it. I think it's for whatever reason, like there are some movies that are like this that I don't know how many times I've seen this movie, maybe like a dozen times, but it's like I forget about it in between watches. And so every time I watch it, I'm just sort of surprised by something new. This time I was kind of taken by the fact that Denzel Washington is a freaking movie star. And it's amazing.
A stud. I nominated this movie because I couldn't not nominate it. I mean, that's when we looked at the list, we couldn't not watch this movie.
I was shocked that this movie wasn't nominated.
I was shocked that this movie was not nominated for an Oscar.
The Fugitive, which great movie.
Yeah.
But
great movie. A lot of people love it.
Nominated for an Oscar. Philadelphia not nominated for it.
It's crazy.
Amazing. What did Emily have to say about Philadelphia?
So Emily's has me back. She said, "Bawled my eyes out. One of Antonio Banderas' best roles.
Wow.
The portrayal of them as a couple had a real profound impact on me at a young age. It gave humanity to the tragedy of AIDS."
Wow.
Well done, Emily.
Got to replace Raj with Emily's reviews.
I mean, I'm telling you. Well, I mean, Raj's audition tapes are not ringing in the way I think they should. So he should know he's on notice.
What do you think Whoopi Goldberg said about this in her Oscars monologue?
Nothing.
You don't think she did anything? I don't know. I'll scrub the.
What quip are you going to make about this movie?
I'll scrub it and see. I don't know what kind of joke you would make. That's true. Okay, that is it. Philadelphia in the books. Next up, Betsy.
Philadelphia.
We're traveling to Australia next time with a big old piano in tow. It's The Piano by Jane Campion.
I may have seen this movie. I'm really not quite sure.
I'm sure I don't.
If you saw this movie, then you saw a lot of Harvey Keitel. Do you have Harvey Keitel memories in your mind?
I could have blocked those parts out. But see, here's the thing. It's again, like the way Emily will talk about movies that you think you've seen, but you really haven't seen.
Right.
Because of all the cultural zeitgeist around the movie. Like I know there's like full frontal Keitel. I can remember Piano in the Water and Anna Paquin. Like that's what I got. And I love Holly Hunter. So we'll see.
Betsy, Liz, thank you for hanging out on the streets of Philadelphia with me. What city should we have Bruce sing about next time? Omaha? Does he have an Omaha?
No, he has a whole Nebraska album.
Nebraska album. But I will say what we should go do.
Atlantic City.
Yeah, that'd be fun. There's a wonderful pork sandwich I had at the Reading Market, Reading Terminal. So we can go over there in Philadelphia. Let's go eat that sandwich together.
Let's go do it.
Let's go.
I'll see you there. Take care, everyone. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ain't no angel gonna greet me. It's just you and I, my friend. And my clothes don't fit me no more. I walk 1,000 miles just to slip this skin. The night is falling.